Hi, my name is Samuel Daly, and this is the introduction to my software project, Immersive Education. My student number is X17140421, and my stream is software developing. I'm giving this presentation in an unconventional way as I do not have a laptop with a webcam. I have a personally built computer, so I do not have a webcam. I have spoken to Frances, and she has given me the opportunity to split my presentation into two parts. So one being a short face recording, just introducing myself, just so you can have a face to the voice that you're going to be listening to in the main presentation. Just to give a bit of background about Immersive Education. Immersive Education is a quiz application that was developed in Java on Android Studio. It uses an SQLite database as its source of data, and it is a application that tests the user and helps them grow their knowledge. So that is the short face introduction to my application. I hope you enjoy what you're watching, and I hope you stay safe and take care. All the best. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Samuel Daly and my project is Immersive Education. This is a continuation from my phone recording. As I stated in the phone recording, why it is separated into a face view and then my project view. But I will continue on with my project presentation. So as I said already, my application is Immersive Education, and I will now give you a quick introduction into the application. So my application is a quiz app that tests the user. The quiz app has a list of categories, and each category has n amount of questions in each. Each one is different, each one has more or less. The user is timed to see if they can answer all the questions in time. The game ends once the user answers all the questions or when the time runs out. And at the very end, the results are displayed with what the user got. So they either got it right, wrong, or did not answer. Right is indicated by a green box, wrong is indicated by a red box, and did not answer is indicated by a blue box. I will now go on to give a program walkthrough of my application. So I will now run the project. So it is introduced with a splash screen, and then I am automatically logged in because Firebase has a unique tool that it remembers users that signed in recently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out and bring you through the sign up and login process. So I am brought to the login screen. So here I can enter my email and password and log in if I already have an account. But for the sake of the presentation, I'm going to register a new account. So by doing that, what you do is you click not registered, sign up here, you double click this text view here, and it brings you to the sign up page. So from here we enter in an email and password. So my email would be ncirl@ncirl.ie, and then my password would be ncirl20, as it's 2020. So if I sign up here, it should sign me up and then log me in straight away. Perfect. You see here it says you are now logged in, and if I go to Firebase, it should show, as you see here, it shows samdaily@gmail.com as the only user for the application. So if I refresh this, it should show ncirl at ncirl.ie, and there we are there. Brand new user created on the 2nd of August. So now back to the project. So here you are greeted by a list of categories with questions in each for you to choose from. So for the sake of this project, I am going to answer questions on maths. So I'm given 15 questions in each with a 5-minute time limit. And you see here we have a group of boxes. So this will indicate what questions you got right, wrong, or did not answer. So for the sake of presenting, I'm not going to answer the first one, so it can show you that there was a question that was not answered. So if I go to the second question, it's a slide, so I can slide back and forth through questions. So what is pi? And that answer to that is 3.14159. What is 4/5 as a decimal? That would be 0.8. Two angles of a triangle each measure 70 degrees. What is the measure of the third angle? So triangle is 180 degrees, so 70 is 140, so the answer is A, 40. How many faces does an icosahedron have? I'm going to think that's 21. No, I was wrong. I have no idea. How many seconds are in 12 minutes? 60 times 12, 720. How many months are in a year? 12 times 12, 144. What Greek letter is used to signify summation? I believe that is sigma. In base 2, what is 1 plus 1? I believe the answer is 10. I'm probably wrong. I think it's actually 2, but I'm going to say 10. Oh, it was 10. Happy days. Next question. Jill earns $120 for 8 hours of work. At the same pay rate, how much would she earn for 15 hours of work? So that's 240 minus 15, 225. Yes. So a Roman numeral for 500 is L, I believe. No, I was wrong. What is 20% of 1630? I don't know, so I'm going to say 426, which was wrong. The square root of 2025, that's 45. What is approximate value of E? I think that's 1.141. No, I was absolutely wrong with that one, which is not a prime number. 4 is not a prime number. And as you can see here, I came to the end of the quiz. So from here, I have an option to finish quiz. So once you come to the end, the quiz doesn't end on a swipe right. It ends when you click the tick. It says finish. Do you really want to finish? You say yes. So as you see here, it shows all the questions I got right, wrong, or did not answer. So I am in this tab at the moment. It says 15 questions are not answered. 15 questions were asked in total. 10 were answered correctly, as you see here from the ticks. 4 were answered incorrectly, and 1 wasn't answered at all. So I have the option here. I can go back and do a different quiz, or I can do the same quiz again to try get 15 out of 15. So if I click do quiz again, I click yes, it'll bring me to the first question and it'll ask me all the questions again. And then I can finish up here. Do you really want to finish? Because we already went through the quiz. We can go, it shows me that again, and then we can go back to result, and then we can go to video games. So now it's going to ask me questions of video games. And another option I have here is if I am hard of seeing, I have an option up the top left where I can say where it has questions 1 to 15. It'll show me either green, red, or blue, the questions I did answer, did not answer, or I'm yet to answer. So if I say which was Rayman, I say EA, I got that wrong, but it says red here, so the question was red, and it goes through red, green, however many questions I get right or wrong or do not answer. So from here, I'm finished showing you the quiz because it's more repetitive. It just keep going on and on and on until you get every single question right and you're happy with how you did. So if I go back, I am now at the home screen, and from here I can click settings by the three icons here, and then I can either go back and play the game. I can press dismiss, or I can go settings and then log out, and I'll be brought to the login screen. So that was the main walkthrough of the project. So I will now go through the code that I showed. So if I go to the top of this class, so we have a litany of classes here. So these are all the classes that made up the program. We have the adapter classes. The adapter classes was basically, it just aided everything else. So it made sure everything was set how it is. So answer sheet adapter, that sets what happens in the question. So if you click a question right, it makes sure the question is right. And I have my res class, and I have my layouts, and this is what all my classes, this is how I got the design for all my classes. So I have my login class here. So if you see that build up, this is what my login looks like, and that's what I showed in the application. So now I'm going to go through a few of the classes. So as I said, my answer sheet adapter, this sets what happens when a question is answered. So if a question was answered right, it shows green, wrong, it shows red, not answered, it shows blue. And then I also have a question answer sheet helper adapter. This is more of an error handling class. So if for some reason my answer sheet adapter did not work, my answer sheet adapter would then come into play and do all the work. This is a fail-safe so that my application would definitely work. Then I have my category adapter. This is basically when I select a category, it tells you which questions to show. Then my question fragment adapter, this says which questions from which list are going to show up. Then I have my result grid adapter, and this would be my end of game display. So it just shows, so as you see here, we have a tick for which question we got right, which question we got wrong, and which question we didn't answer. That was the display I showed you at the very end of the game. Then we have my favorite class is my common class. So my common class is a class that stores all my static variables, my functions and my util function. This was a new class that I tried and worked. This basically helped me. This this cleaned up my code a lot, so I didn't have to keep initializing variables throughout the entire code. I could just have them in one and call this class, and everything else would work. If I say common dot total time, it would take the total time from common, so I wouldn't have to write common total time equals 5 star 60 star 1000 to get 5 minutes. Then my space decoration class, this is just a class that it just designed more of the code. So it basically it had a set rectangle, so this is just a space. This is a decorator class, and it just made the application to a set standard. Then I have my database helper class. So my database helper class, this calls the database, as you can see. So my application was called iedbbb1.db, and my database version was 1. You can set that in SQLite browser. And from here, it got all the categories, and then it got the questions in each category, and it listed the questions by the text, image, answer, correct answer, was it an image question, or the category ID. Then I have my online DB helper. This was a tester class that I tried. It didn't work properly, so I scrapped it, but I kept the code in because I was happy with the code and I feel like I can do work on it. But this was to try connect to an online mode, but it didn't work as how I wanted it to work. Then my interface class. My interface class was the iQuestion was for automation. This helped the question automation. My recycler callback, it helped with viewing. So my recycler was the view of each page. So this was on click, it viewed what you wanted to view and it was in the position you wanted it to be. And my callback was an array list, so it just sets the questions for the array. Then I have my model, so this was just setting variables and initializing them, setters and getters. Then I have my login activity. This was just for the login, the Firebase login that I showed you. It called, this was the login, so I might as well say sign up first because sign up can't happen without a login, and login can't happen without sign up. So this was enter an email, enter a password, and then it would send the information that you said to Firebase, and then from there you could log in, enter in your email, enter in your password. If fields were empty, it would prompt you that were empty. If there was a problem logging in, it would prompt that problem logging in, and if everything went smoothly, it would send you to the homepage, main activity. After that, I have my main activity. Main activity was one of the big classes. This showed the categories to show up. This called the categories to show up and the settings for the logout, as I showed. I also have my question activity. This was mainly for all the for answering the questions and all the code that had to go into that, and for the timer. So it just made sure, so on create it set up everything, and then it was in answer mode. So if I wanted to view the answers, so if I actually go into the app again, ncirl at ncirl.ie, and then the pass ncirl20. So if I log in and go into maths, as I said, Firebase has a thing to show. So if I click 245, that was wrong, and then it just showed it for the first question. And then do I really want to finish? If I go to view answers, it crashes. I don't know why. That crashed, but that's just a problem with Android application. It sometimes crashes, but if I open it back up, it'll be good as new. So square root of 24, I'm going to say 22. If I say finish, yes, and then if I go into view answers, it'll show all the answers for each question. So I just show it crashed there for no reason. There was no prompt for it to crash. It just crashed because Android Studio is unreliable at times. But I found it out a lot during the development of the program. So that was question activity. So question fragment was basically, it was to show all the question lists that came up, so, and the checkboxes that you saw. And so if a question was answered, it was green. If a question wasn't answered, it was red. And it basically reset the questions at the very end, as well as showing the lists come up. And then if I go to my results activity, this was the results page that I showed you. So this made sure, so as we see here, this shows you whether you got an excellent, good, fair, poor, bad, or failing. That showed you in the application when you finished up, as well as just answer shit though. So like if the button filter was right, it would say it would call the common class, and it was answer sheet list filtered. It cleared it, so everything would be reset when you finished up, and it called, do you want to do the quiz again, or do you want to view the answer, or do you want to go home? And then if you view answer, it would call view answer, and if you want to do the quiz again, it will call do quiz again, and that's how it went. And then at the very end, we have some. So I will go back to the PowerPoint presentation now. So that was my program walkthrough. So now if you have a few questions already asked, my apologies. So if I go to the first question, so the first question is, discuss the most difficult aspect of your project with particular emphasis on those areas related to your chosen specialization. Personally, the most difficult aspect of any Android application project is design, but that's mainly because I have no design culture in my brain. I just can't make things look nice together. I can't color coordinate whatsoever. But talking about in my chosen specialization, which is software development, that my hardest thing would be the database helper, and I will show you why. So if I go to database helper, and I can show you line. One of the real problems here is my database version. I had no idea that database version had to be implemented. I thought because when I kept booting up, the database kept crashing. So if you boot up with database without database version, it crashes. I'm not too sure why you have to call the database version, but you really have to. And without it, the application won't work. You can modify your version in SQLite browser, which I could do, but there's no really point. I just kept it at 1. That was a problem with me. Also, another one was context. Context was a tough one to realize how important it was. So, context for a database is really important because it helps newly added code understand what's going on. So, without context, your database wouldn't actually register as a new database. I found this out the hard way because once I found out about database version, I had the problem with context. So, it was a lot of trial and error. And another one was cursor. So cursor is basically it's something that contains the result set of a query made against a database. So for example, calling categories. So I call the category. So I cursor.db get the raw query. I had no idea how important query was. So it's calling the database to display, but I didn't know how important it was, and I found it out on Stack Overflow that when developing an Android Studio with a database, you need Cursor. So I had to find out how to use Cursor, and then had to find out how to implement Cursor, because basically it has an API that allows the application to read what columns the database offers. So without Cursor, your application won't work at all. So that was question 1. So question 2, discuss the most innovative aspect of your project, for example, with respect to your use of technologies, programming languages, or frameworks, etc. So for this, it was my common class that I stated was one of my favorite classes because I was reading online that some people have all their static variables, their functions, and your util functions in the one class. So I tried to do that, and with a lot of trial and error, I found out how to do it by a lot of research as well. And if I didn't explain, a util function is a function that represents, it's something that represents a function that takes in one argument and produces a result, or two arguments and produces a result. So example, questions, it takes in multiple arguments. So for this, it took in all my static variables, it took in all my array lists, and it took in all my util functions, my ints, my strings, my string builders, and my answer types. So this was a detrimental class, and it also saved a lot of time coding, as well as it cleaned up the code a lot, because I got to take out a lot of declarations, because this just helped everything come together and look a lot nicer. But that would be my most innovative thing that I used in the application. So if I go to question 3, with respect to your requirement specification, what requirements have you since added, removed, or changed, and what impact had this on your completeness of your project? So initially, I hard coded my questions, but then I thought, no, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. So then I decided to use. Then I went into trying to use PHP My Admin as a local database, and then I realized I can't have a local database if I'm sending this on to the college because for some reason it might not work. So I decided to use an online database, which I started to use Firebase. So I had all my questions in Firebase, and then I didn't like the idea of having my authentication and my questions and categories in the same area. So I then decided to use an SQLite database instead of Firebase, and I modified, altered, and changed around the code in SQLite browser, which helped a lot. Uh, with regards to my requirement specification, I said I'd add a scoreboard, but by doing that, I felt I was limiting myself to future expansion because if I add a scoreboard when I have a lot more knowledge about the framework, it would be a lot better because I would have a more in-depth knowledge, as I already said, about how to do it. So what I did was I did the display results as you saw, the red, green, and blue. I also said I was going to have 5 questions in my requirement specification, but I only kept it 4. I like the idea of having 4. I think 5 is too much, and it would just get a bit messy as well. But those are the main things that happened, and the impact that it on it basically it helped me complete it because the online mode, as I said, I tried to use a database online helper, but it didn't go exactly as planned, so I tried to scrap it, but I implemented it into my code. So it's in my code, but it just does nothing, but it helps for future expansion. And describe in detail your approach to testing. So for testing, I did it a more unique way, as it's been told to me. I created a test category, and the test category had 6 questions in it, and the answers were right answer, wrong answer, so I know which ones to answer. So I answered each question either right or wrong, and by that I knew my code was either working or broken because everything I did was to aid either answering them right or wrong, swiping left or right, seeing the display, seeing the answers, going back, redoing a quiz, going to the home page, and by doing those short 6 questions, I was able to tell which part was right or wrong by looking at the logcat, because a lot of the time it crashed until it just kept working and working and working, and then I found out that once that worked, my code was done. So that was more unconventional way of testing, but I found it aided me a lot more than the conventional ways. But the initial problems I had with testing is my slider didn't work. As I showed you, I have a slider. So a slider like that. Correct questions. So for example, the text next number in sequence, I click 15 and I'd go across, but it would still come up red here. That was another problem that I had. Actually, I can show you in the code where I fixed it. So for that one, that was in question fragment, I believe it's around here. Uh, yes, here it was this method here, this if statement here. So I actually, so for the reason why the correct answer wouldn't register, I had greater than 1, so it was expecting 2 answers, but the database knew that it didn't have 2 answers. So with it expecting 2 answers and not having 2 answers, it was always going to be wrong, but it still worked, and it was really difficult to find the solution to this. I kept going through and through and through. It took me about 2 or 3 days, actually 2 or 3 days of just looking through code, testing, changing code, moving code, everything to actually find the result for this. And then for the first one, when I said the slider wouldn't work, that would be in question activity, and it would be around, should be finish game. Yes, here I forgot .toString. It worked without .toString, but without .toString it wouldn't slide because it wanted to keep sliding and it just wouldn't slide. I took me ages to find that. It was actually a happy accident how I came across .toString. I typed in dot and two, and then string came up. I tried it, and it started working, and I was over the moon. And then another problem that I had was the results wouldn't display. So to get the results to display, I wasn't calling intent. Intent is, without calling intent, an action won't perform. So I found out then how important intent was. I just it just never crossed my mind that I had to put it in. But once I did it, it was working perfectly, and I've used it hundreds of times since. But that would be my way of testing. And then the final question: if you were to start your project again, would you change any of the decisions you made? For example, in relation to tools, technologies, languages, algorithms, testing strategies, etc. So, a big one here. I would not use Java whatsoever. I would develop it in Kotlin, because in application development, Kotlin offers a great advantage over Java. It is slower though. Compiling time is a lot slower for Kotlin, but you're able to experience a lot more in-depth coding. It's harder to learn Kotlin, but it helps in the future. And if you have a strong understanding of Java, you do understand it. And also, a lot of app developers look for Kotlin programmers over Java. So I found that out only a few days ago as well, which I was surprised with, because I do know Kotlin a bit from past modules, but I didn't know how big it was compared to Java, even though how little it's used. And in relation to tools, I wouldn't use SQLite database as my database. I would try to find an alternative method. I'm not too sure which method I would use, but I would like to find something else to use. And also, I would try to find something better than Android Studio. Even though Android Studio is one of the best there is, it just has a lot of errors where the emulator can crash for no reason. As you saw earlier on, it just crashed out of nowhere. Like, I had no reason to crash. I opened it back up and I did the exact same thing, and it worked perfectly. That's just a problem with emulator. If it runs for too long, or if it's been running all day, it just crashes out of nowhere. And Android Studio also freezes your computer sometimes. So that's another thing I would look into changing. But yeah, that is the conclusion of my application. I would like to thank you for listening, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity of doing this a lot later than others have been doing it, because of everything that's going on in the world. And I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. And if you have any problems, my email was at the start of the PowerPoint. I hope to hear from you soon, and thank you very much for listening. Goodbye. Take care. All the best.